when we think about the civil rights movement, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's those iconic images, right? The huge marches, the powerful speeches from famous leaders. And yeah, that's all crucial, but it's only part of the story. The real engine of change, well, that was often a lot quieter. It was found in the day-to-day lives, the sheer resilience of countless ordinary families. And their stories, that's the foundation of the whole movement. So, instead of just looking at the loud protests that made all the headlines, we're going to zoom way in. We're going to focus on the quiet lives and the silent survival of the families who were really the bedrock of this entire movement. This isn't a story about grand public gestures. It's about incredible, everyday courage.
All right, so to really get a handle on this, let's go back. Picture a small southern town back in the 1940s. And let's meet a family, we'll call them the Johnsons. Now, they're not famous, you won't find them in any history books, but their story, well, it represents millions of others. These were people living in a world that was just built on injustice, and they had to figure out how to navigate it, one single day at a time.
So for the Johnsons, and so many families just like them, life was governed by this whole set of rules. Some were written down, but a lot of them were unspoken. You see, segregation wasn't just some abstract law. No, it was a constant, oppressive presence. It was in every single part of their daily life. I mean, it started with the kids. The schools they went to were separate, yeah, but also totally underfunded, and they were designed from the very beginning to send a clear message that they were inferior. And it continued right in the middle of town. Think about it. Where you were allowed to shop, where you could get something to eat, even which door you were supposed to use, all of it was dictated by the color of your skin. This whole system was reinforced every single day by humiliations, big and small. You know, those separate, often neglected water fountains, they became this constant public symbol of just how divided everything was. So, in this incredibly hostile world, the main goal wasn't always a loud protest. For so many people, the primary, all-consuming focus was just survival. It was about enduring, with dignity, one grueling day after another. And that survival, it was built on relentless, back-breaking work. But here's the thing. In this world, labor was anything but equal. And the work that really held everything and everyone together, that was often the most invisible work of all. So take the father in our family, Mr. Johnson. He worked long, hard hours at a low-paying job where the inequality was just baked into the system. I mean, he could work just as hard or even harder than a white coworker, but what did he get? Lower wages, zero job security, and absolutely no chance for promotion. For him, hard work didn't bring respect. It just brought another day of having to endure. And the mother's work? Well, that's a story history often just forgets. She was a domestic worker, right? Cleaning the homes of white families, facing those daily humiliations, and then coming back to her own home to cook and clean and care for her own children. Her labor, you know, it's not in the history books, but it was the absolute glue holding the family and the entire community together. And the kids, they learned about racism firsthand, right in school. They're dealing with overcrowded classrooms, having to walk for miles to get to the Black-only school, using old, beat-up, hand-me-down textbooks. Sure, the system gave them a school building, but it was designed from the ground up to deny them an equal education. Okay, so this all brings us to the most crucial point. When you're faced with a system this overwhelming, how do you fight back? Well, they didn't always march. They didn't always shout. So often, their resistance was more like a whisper, found in these small, quiet, but incredibly powerful acts that preserved their humanity and their dignity. And that is what we mean by quiet resistance. It's this idea of opposing a system, not always with a direct confrontation, but through the really profound act of just affirming your own value, of affirming your community's value, when the world around you is trying to strip it all away. So what did this actually look like for a family like the Johnsons? Well, it was the mother and father, at the end of a long day, teaching their kids that they were worthy, that they were intelligent, that they were equal no matter what the world told them. It was saving every single spare penny, not for something nice, but for the dream of a better education. And most importantly, it was this internal, powerful, absolute refusal to believe the lie that they were inferior. Now, it's so important to remember that these quiet, resilient lives weren't just happening in a vacuum. No, they were building something. They were creating a foundation of strength, of resolve,
And that was the exact foundation a national movement would need when its first seeds started to sprout.
So, as news of things like bus boycotts and sit ins start to trickle in, can you just imagine the mix of emotions in a home like the Johnsons'? On one hand, there's this incredible, dangerous hope for real, actual change, but that's mixed with a very, very real fear of violent retaliation if you stepped out of line. You can just picture the quiet, intense prayers happening at the dinner table, can't you?
I mean, that really captures the razor's edge they were living on. The way things were was just unbearable, but the path to changing it was filled with danger. And yet, for so many, the risk, it just became necessary. That whispered resistance, it was about to find its public voice.
And the Johnson family, our archetypical family here, they never got a statue. You're not going to find their names in any headlines. They won't be in the history books. They and millions of people just like them are the anonymous heroes of this entire story.
And that, right there, is the core takeaway. Their survival, their dignity, their quiet refusal to be broken, that was the bedrock. All of the loud, celebrated victories of the civil rights movement, they were built on top of this quiet, unshakable foundation of family and community just trying to survive.
So it really leaves us with a pretty powerful question, doesn't it? As we look at the world around us today, what are the quiet, unseen foundations now? What are the everyday acts of resilience and dignity by ordinary people that are supporting the progress we all see?